Hey guys, it's Tom here with MYT Solar, finishing this build on a 260 kVS from Outdoors RV. Special rig to us as this is the rig that we own. It was fun to do this for a customer, and the main thing that this customer wanted was expandability. They wanted a nice system for right now, and they wanted something that they could grow into, maybe add some batteries, add some solar later on. We'll talk about that as we move through. They'll be able to plug their portable panel straight into this original port and be charging this Victron system. We have some other alternatives, which is usually putting another Victron controller in there, which may be a little more ideal, but this was a nice affordable way to continue using what the customer already has. I've posted a few videos lately about the port that comes on certain trailers and certain motorhomes, some pre-wiring, some ZAMP style or some portable style ports that come on a few RVs. Talking about expandability, this customer wanted to be able to expand their solar with a portable panel. Now they already have a portable panel that has a built-in charge controller. In our regular way that we wire these systems, and we will not have use to this port anymore. It's a little complicated, but there's a device that we put in there that's only a one-way device, which prevents current going back to the batteries. The customer already had this style panel. This already had the charge controller built into his portable panel. What we did is we rewired this port and changed the wiring a little bit so that it was brought directly to the batteries again. If you're wondering why we were saying that this port's not active and now it is, well, everything can be done. Everything can be rewired. We're just talking about running wires and making sure things are done correctly. In my opinion, this port is a little less than ideal. What we usually do is we will build our own port with an Anderson connector, which is a much better connector, and that Anderson is actually going to a Victron charge controller which lives inside the RV. Now the advantages of that, which this customer will not have, is that you actually get the solar production shown on the Touch 70 screen, and it's a Victron controller, which is a little better for the batteries, things like that. They'll still see the current on the Touch 70, but they won't be able to tell exactly where it's coming from. It's just, you know, there's many ways to skin a cat, so to speak, and this was the ideal solution for this customer. While this customer did plan to expand at a later time, and still does with a few items in the build, the solar was one thing that when they arrived and we mapped the solar out, they just wanted to get it done right away. And I will always push for that. Adding solar later can be a little tricky because you're thinking about where you're placing the panels for now and for the best thing now, rather than, oh, later on I may want to squeeze a few more panels in. Let's put them in a less than ideal location now. Getting as much solar done at the time is a better option, and our customer realized that quickly when we started mapping this out for them. So originally going to have 1500 watts of solar. They ended up with 2000 watts of solar, which we didn't change the charge controller. Really at that point all they were paying for was the extra panels. We didn't charge them any extra labor because we were already up here. Wiring 6 versus wiring 7, not a big deal to us. They've got, interestingly, they were pretty keen on covering their skylights, blocking out some light and some heat from the camper. And also, that's an ideal place for solar in this rig because there's no shadowing from any fixtures, and it's at the front of the rig, which will normally be in the sun most of the time. So I've actually got 3 panels on our rails here just to cover the skylight, that little strip there, and everything else is done with our heavy-duty high-mount Z-brackets. They saved a fair bit of cost there in only doing partial rail, but still ended up with a pretty ideal solar solution for this rig. Expandable later. Originally, again, that's what they said, we'll add 500 watts later. And I was like, well, look, we can just get it done right now. And away we went. Alrighty, so this is a 50 amp RV. We've used the Multi-Plus 2, which is going to give us those 2 legs of 50 amp passing through. Keep in mind, it's still only a single inverter, so when they're plugged in, they'll still get the full 50 amp from the pedestal, the 2 legs, and then when they're running off the inverter, they'll get both legs fed to the coach, but at the limitation of a 3000 volt amp inverter. So they can run everything, just not all at the same time, which with the smaller battery bank, having a second inverter, we get that question a lot. Sure, again, expandability, there's plenty of room here to add a second inverter at a later date, but ultimately, you add a second inverter, now you can pull 600 watts, but how quickly is that going to deplete your battery bank? Everything still has to be moderated, managed. You got to think about your consumption. I would suggest probably more batteries at a later date, and that's what they wanted. They wanted to leave room for a third battery, which is easy enough to do. Save some more pennies and throw a third battery in at a later date. 2 of the 330s for now, possibly another 330 later. Again, we've got all the Victron goodies and the Orion XS DC to DC charger. That was one little option that not a lot of our customers go for, but we talk about expandability. Adding in the DC to DC later is definitely an option. Adding in a DC to DC charging system later on is a good way to expand a system as well. With the 2000 watts of solar on the roof and a 700 or a 650 watt charge coming out of the Orion XS at all times, just extra ways to boost the systems. We've got it charging up for the first time now. Those batteries come to us about 50% charged, so it's going to be a bit of a juice up here for the system, get everything fully charged up with that initial cycle. Got our Touch 70 screen here in the bathroom showing us what's going on. The customer was happy for that location. As you can see, we can see what's going on. We've got 1600 watts coming from the shore power, and we're running that initial charge. We're only at 76% and we're coming up, and obviously we've got no solar right now because we're sitting inside. An expandable system, some of the expansions were already done at the time, but there's always options to expand later. Sometimes it's easier to do certain things at certain times in the project. I'm curious how you guys have maybe expanded your system or some things that you plan to do later on. I know we've got a lot of customers coming back to us next year who want to expand their solar. They want to add the rails, they want to add a battery, things like that. It's always an option. Obviously, it's nice to get the system up and running, see how it works for you, and not either go overboard too early, things like that. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you have any questions. This is Tom with MYT Solar. Cheers.